There had been issues with her homeless uncle. He punched a hole through the wall and was using power from the laundry room to watch TV in the garage. Chain smoking in there, and they vandalized the laundry machines to take the coins. It was becoming really a problem. They drilled a hole in the back. They somehow popped it open and stole the coins, but they also drilled in the back so that they could start the machine without putting coins in. We sent our property management with the police to do a wellness check, but the place was completely destroyed, covered in feces, urine. Clearly there had been dogs living in there for a very long time. One of the tenants had told us that she had come through the night before and left with some trash bags. It's very possible that those dogs didn't survive in there.
Hey, what's up you guys? With the holidays and New Year coming up, get a jump start on the real estate competition. When I began my last development project, I didn't start at the New Year. I started right before the holidays, and because I did, I felt light years ahead of everyone else that would normally say, I'm gonna go hard this new year and I'm gonna accomplish all these goals. And they'll most likely be saying the same thing next year, so don't be that person. So right now through the end of the year, with LTP Consulting, we have a few open slots left for a limited time discounted offer on consulting, accountability coaching, and mentoring packages for both new and beginner level real estate investors. Everything from general guidance to hands-on training and mentorship in areas like long-term buy and hold rentals, fix and flips, down to the mechanics of setting up your property management and implementing creative financing strategies, all at an affordable price. So go to our website now to level3properties.com to select from one of our packages that best fits your situation and schedule a free 30-minute consultation to see if we make a good fit and to make sure that you don't get left behind at the start of the new year. I wish I had a coach or mentor when I first started out in real estate, because who knows how much sooner I would have reached my goals. So do be that person that invests in your future, stop making excuses, and let's go the distance together. All right, now back to the episode. All right, what's up you guys? This is D with Level 3 Properties, and welcome to yet another episode 4 of our mini mastermind. And we have yet another special guest with us here today. This man has been crushing it out here as a real estate investor, property manager, house flipper, short and mid-term rental expert, and currently hangs his real estate salesperson license as a buyer's agent with Buckingham Multifamily Investments. He was also the one who helped me buy my first investment property. He has multiple doors with properties both in California and out in the state of Missouri. He has combined over 8 years of industry experience, and I am proud to not only call this guy a rock star in the real estate industry, but also my good friend. Please help me welcome Mr. Pete Dotai. Hey, how you doing today, man?
Hey D, thank you, man. It's the first time I've heard an intro like that, honestly, so I'm honored. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. We're happy to have you here today. So we will be touching on a few different things as a lot of elements come into play with real estate in general. But today we're going to be narrowing in on one of the darker sides of real estate investing, so to speak, which is dealing with some, unscrupulous and sometimes unreliable tenants, as well as what some may call the worst of the worst, which is squatters. And with that said, we're going to be chatting with Pete here today about some of his experiences and lessons learned from dealing with a plethora of different personalities and problematic situations to ideally avoid. And since we'll be covering some instances of worst case scenarios, I'll leave a link to a video that also covers 5 massive tips that can potentially save you from having to deal with squatters. And that's in the case of if you decide to take that leap of faith into real estate investing, and even if you've been investing your whole life, because it happens to seasoned investors too, not just newbies or regular homeowners. So yeah, Pete, today my first question for you is, a few years ago you operated both short and mid-term rentals for about 4 years, a little more than 4 years out in San Francisco. So you must have seen some crazy things with tenants, from altercations, tenants unwilling to follow rules, all the way to tenants being reluctant to even want to leave. For someone that's actually looking to get into the short or mid-term rental space, what would you say is the most common problem that you would come across with tenants that surprised you that you had to deal with most often?
Yeah, so my experience in San Francisco actually started with short term, and then was almost forced into the midterm space because of the regulations there in San Francisco. I saw an opportunity when I was living there with a bunch of college buddies in an apartment 8-bedroom flat, which already was pretty crazy. And I was exposed in that first year to some of these apartments that had been chopped into 8, 10, 14 bedroom units. The owner of my place owned units some of my other friends lived in. So I kind of spurred my interest in, what's going on here. This guy, clearly he's packing more people into these spaces and it's working really well. I mean, we were each paying $1,500, $1,600, $1,700 a month for the room, just getting, producing a lot more income out of these units than somebody with a 3 and a 5 bedroom, because he's packing, at the time, millennial tech workers into these apartments because everyone wanted to live in San Francisco. We were happy to pay that much because it was a clean, brand new apartment. Now it's a perfect place for co-living operators because huge tech boom there, so many jobs, everyone wanted to live there, limited amount of inventory places to live. So, they're finding ways to squeeze more people into the existing space. So our downstairs neighbor was actually in a 14 bedroom unit down there that had been, it was a 5 bedroom, finished the basement underneath and was able to squeeze 14 bedrooms in there. Not up to code or anything, I'm sure. The owner then leased to a master tenant who furnished them just bare bones materials and was renting the rooms out individually to transients, millennial tech workers like us, interns, med school students, and things like that. So I was exposed to this co-living space downstairs, seeing what was going on. I made friends with some of the people down there. We'd go hang out, and I saw the opportunity because even though this place was bare bones, the guy who operated it was not on site and he would come by once in a while. It was poorly managed, but it was still always booked. And so I knew, I could just do the math and you talk to these people, what are you paying? 2,300 a month, and some of them short term. I knew this guy was making money and there was opportunity. This is super interesting rental arbitrage. I thought, I could do this too. And I can clearly, there's opportunity here. I can imagine for these people who want to live here for a month, 2 months, they're trying to move to San Francisco, find a place to live while they look for a permanent spot. I decided, hey, I'm going to look for one of these and see if I could furnish it and set it up myself. So it was always going to be a co-living space, different people living in under one roof, paying, it's like a hostel, but longer term. Obviously, San Francisco, very expensive. These people are working high paying jobs. I wanted to be able to do short term and long term. I started out just doing short term with no permit because that's how almost everyone started. It's a long process. I had to move quickly, but it took me a couple months of applying for the permit when I subsequently was denied. At that point, the city actually came after me very aggressively. They had a task force on short-term rentals at the time. I mean, San Francisco was the birthplace of Airbnb. And so they were kind of the first in the cities to pass regulations and to press down on Airbnb operations. And they came after me very aggressively, telling me to shut down, to cancel all my bookings. Otherwise, for every booking that I had, they would fine me $500 a day, which was not true. And they had no way of verifying my bookings. But it had already been a few months, 3 months or so of operating short terms where I built up enough reviews. People were trusting of, hey, okay, this place has good reviews. And I was able to then survive. It was a tough transition. I almost didn't survive because my rent at the time it was $10,700 a month, and I had to make enough money to cover that rent every month. One of the rooms went to me, so it was 8 rooms in one of the rooms. I survived that. Went to midterm rentals. Didn't even know what to call it. I just called it a co-living space, and ultimately it worked. It worked pretty well, and it was much less maintenance, but they came with a host of different challenges. Although I think it was easier to operate, inherently being a co-living space, it's about community, it's about people meshing together. And so people are more comfortable when they know who their neighbor is going to be for 30 days rather than just the weekend and there's somebody new coming in. It's a lot of turnover. Instead, it was more continuity. Anyway, that's the story behind it. I went on to do that for another 3 years until COVID ultimately shut me down.
Yeah. And maybe you were going to be going into it anyways, but initially one of my first questions was your vetting process, because I can understand vetting prospective tenants for when it's going to be something long term. So you might want to take a deeper dive, deeper approach. And I don't know how thorough you would be if it's on a short term. What was your vetting process like, because you knew they were only going to be staying for a shorter amount of time?
I was completely reliant on Airbnb. That was my lifeblood. My reviews were everything. It was taking a little bit of a leap of faith every time because, you're booking somebody for a month. And not only, are they going to be your guest, but they're going to be my roommate for that time. And it was, at times fulfilling and rewarding, and at times super challenging. Some of the people are more reserved, some of the people are more introverted. And so sometimes I had guests who came in who maybe like a social space or living with seven other people wasn't really suitable to them. So it would be challenging integrating them. But the vetting process was essentially just looking at their Airbnb profile, asking them a few questions. Hopefully they had some reviews, but I had the support of Airbnb, and I felt like I could trust them to resolve issues when they did come up. I'd say I had issues in other areas, but reoccurring, cleanliness, things like that. One telltale sign you asked about that would be somebody coming in asking a lot of questions and specifically asking for discounts. It's not uncommon generally. That would be a little bit of a telltale sign of a higher maintenance person who was looking for something very specific. Having a co-living space, people need to be flexible, get along, share a bathroom, share a kitchen. Like sometimes I would be a little suspect of people upfront asking for big concessions. There were incidents along the way for sure. I hosted over 300 people. When they know I'm there, they take a little pride in the cleanliness. They take a little pride in how the house is run because they know that they're going to be there for a little while. They have to comply and fit in, and there's a different dynamic with the midterm rentals, especially with a shared space like that.
Just out of curiosity, was there ever an instance where they seemed like perfect on paper, they were perfect on their Airbnb profile, and then after they moved in, all of a sudden it's like night and day. They just flipped on you and just became a horrible tenant all of a sudden?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there were people who definitely were a lot different than I expected. Usually people weren't exactly who I thought they were. For the most part, people were able to fit in. I didn't have too many serious problems, but yeah, you never quite know. You're looking at their photos on Airbnb and you're looking at their profile, and you talk to them, ask a few questions, and then they come, lock in to live with you for a month. Sometimes that turns into 3 and 6 months. I didn't know about Furnished Finder back then. I don't think Furnished Finder it may not have been around back then. And that, that's, if I was doing it again, I would absolutely be on Furnished Finder. Facebook Marketplace wasn't around either, which is a little more like the Wild West, like Craigslist. But I did advertise on Craigslist a little bit. It was seasonal. People will go home in the holidays. They don't want to rent through the end of December into the beginning of January. So December, January, February, specifically January, February, during Christmas. So December, January, February, it was the low season. So I would lose money on those months. And so I would make up for it in the summer, but I'd be looking for other ways to fit people in through Craigslist, and through word of mouth. And so sometimes I would, kind of push the boundaries of my own rules sometimes just to fit somebody in and take a chance. And sometimes it worked out. Sometimes it didn't work out really well. So, it was tough. I knew that I was relying completely on Airbnb, and I didn't really feel super comfortable with that.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense because it's a risk, especially for somebody. Because I know that was more towards the beginning of your career in real estate. So, I mean, that's just a risk that you were willing to take. You knew what the risks entailed from your buddy that, that had also been doing it, and you were kind of seeing what he was doing. But that's also just another cool thing that you did that maybe not a lot of the newbie investors might hear about is you did house hacking essentially, but you were doing it with short-term tenants. And so that was just a good way for you to, increase your cash flow and make it easier for you to make your payments, your rent/mortgage payments. And that's awesome. I think that, what you've shined some light on is valuable because a lot of people don't know what they're going to get into. So I think those are some pretty good examples.
Yeah. I mean, it was a combination of a few different things that are kind of become buzzwords, house hacking, midterm rentals, and rental arbitrage altogether, before anyone, called those things. I mean, beginning to go down the bigger pockets rabbit hole, learning about house hacking, and I wanted to get into real estate investing, but living in San Francisco, it was about the highest barrier to entry you could find. And then I was forced into midterm rentals because of the regulations. A good way to do something in real estate that's creative is rental arbitrage. There's a lot of people scaling that. It's very scalable. but it comes with its own risks, and it was a great learning experience, and it definitely started my real estate journey off, and I learned a ton, and I'm grateful for that experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I also wanted to highlight that I wanted to give you kudos on as well too, which is a strong attribute to have as far as especially in real estate investing, but business in general as well too, is that you saw this situation. You were like, okay, I'm doing short-term rentals here, and then the issue with the city came up and dealing with the permitting issue and everything like that, and then you had to transition from short term to mid term, and even just issues with having to make those payments every month and everything. That's I think a crucial part, because that's an uncontrollable factor a lot of the times. Like there's going to be different federal and state regulations and even local regulations that are going to change things up, and you hear about these kind of changes all the time, but you were willing to adapt and you were willing to be flexible and do whatever you had to do to say, okay, here's this situation. How do I turn it into a situation where it can still work for me and I can still proceed and basically be able to do something with it? So yeah, I got to give you hats off to that, because you had to go from one strategy to another and then deal with those changes and everything too. So yeah, man, mad props to you on that, because I know that must have been a scary time. So yeah.
Thank you. It's a little crazy thinking about it. I had a lot of conviction. There were people who told me not to do it. And it was risky. I had no choice. I had to make it work. And so there was a lot to that helped me grow and helped me learn. And I had to just get through. But thankfully it worked out, and I appreciate it. So you learn by doing, man, and that's the name of the game. And so you make mistakes, and that's where you learn, and that's how you kind of correct course. I think it's important to make those mistakes. You try this, try that, and it helps you figure out what you want to do.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. Like I said, mad props to you on that. But yeah, I also wanted to ask you, because I know we had talked about it before, but I just thought it was an interesting situation. So in one of your properties, the apartment complex in SoCal, you had to deal with a very troublesome and time-consuming situation with a tenant slash squatter not too long ago. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about that story of what happened and what caused the situation, what you learned, and the final result of all that.
After COVID, I moved down to Southern California working for Buckingham Investments. We're multifamily brokerage. We help investors build a portfolio, build a long-term investment plan. And so, it was a great place for me to get into the game. Come 2021, end up buying a fourplex in Long Beach. Inherited all four tenants. Our strategy was we wanted a value add project, something with upside, but something that was going to not start out with a huge negative cash flow. So this property needed a new roof, needed some cosmetic work, a little bit of electrical. The units were very dated and in poor condition, but all occupied and rented, and tenants were on time. Kind of a little bit of a rough C-class area, but seeing the seeing the upside in the property that we could capture. With this particular tenant, her name was Penny. She had been, high maintenance, reporting a lot of issues, fix a lot of clogged drains. We'd send a lot of, maintenance over there for little things. But, for the most part, things were kind of cruising along smoothly until 2022. She started acting up. I think she may have been having some issues, personal life, a few incidences where we sent handymen over there, sent workmen over there, and she harassed them. She would either not let them in or harass them. And so it was becoming kind of an issue. And then I don't think she waited. I think it just happened by coincidence, but stopped paying rent right at the end of the moratorium. So there was only 1 month of the moratorium that she didn't pay, which was March of 2023. And so she had stopped paying. We knew it was time we needed to evict her. Not to mention, there had been issues with her homeless uncle, who had moved into the garage and was living in there without us knowing, and a couple times subsequently had to boot him out because he punched a hole through the wall and was using power from the laundry room to watch TV in the garage. Meanwhile, he's chain smoking in there. And I mean, it was kind of a nuisance. So, and they vandalized the laundry machines to take the coins. And so it was becoming really a problem. That began the eviction process, which is a long and arduous process. Tenant doesn't pay rent after 10 days after the month, first of the month. You can then serve them a 3-day notice. So we serve a 3-day notice. And then after that, you can serve a 30-day notice. It's either a 30-day or a 60-day notice. After that period, then you can file with the court. Then you wait 7 to 10 days for the court to respond. And then after that, the court to respond and say, okay, now you can do the eviction. Then you need to serve the tenant with the eviction notice that, hey, we're proceeding, but they have to physically serve it. So you have to confirm receipt of that. And then they have 5 days to respond. Once they respond, the court has 10 days to respond. And then you got to wait 6 to 8 weeks for a court date. And so, by the time we got a court date, this had all started in April. Our court date was in October. My property manager actually, the first notice that they sent out didn't have something updated. There was some updated stipulation that came out of the COVID moratorium that wasn't included. So we lost a month there because they had to submit a new notice. So anyways, the whole thing can take close to a year to complete if the tenants are resisting. They reply and they challenge it. So we got the judgment. She actually tried to fight it. Oh, by the way, along the way, we come to find out she actually wasn't Penny. Her name was Bree. Penny was her mom. Her mom was the actual tenant on the lease. We inherited these tenants, and the previous management was not very good, so we didn't really get great records in the due diligence process. Turned out she actually was living there, not on the lease. Her mom was on the lease, and so she thought that we were evicting her mom and that she was going to be protected by all of this. Not the case. The eviction from our attorneys covered any tenants who were living there. And so unfortunately, her mom actually ended up getting an eviction on her record and not even living there. And so everyone, her mom, her dad, her stepdad, and her got all the eviction on their records. And we offered cash for keys. We gave her every chance. We said, hey, look, we'll help you move. We'll pay for a moving truck. We'll pay for, we'll give your security deposit back. We'll help you pay for the first month of rent at your next place. She was hostile. She wanted nothing to do with it. She wouldn't take $10,000, probably would have had gone up to $15,000 to get her out of there, which ultimately is what we lost in the non-payment of rent. But back to the process, got the court date. After the eviction judgment, the last thing is that at the time, apparently, and this is last year, apparently there were only 2 sheriffs in all of LA County doing lockouts. This is what I was told. And they were backed up all the way till late February. This is from October. So she could have, if she wanted to, just continue living rent-free over there without us having any power to do anything until February, which would have been a total, 9 or 10 months. Ultimately, she actually moved. What prompted us to take possession was the other tenants in the building reported that she had left, but she had left her dogs behind in the unit, which was really concerning for us. They told us there were dogs barking. She hadn't been back. We were concerned about the animals. We sent animal control. They were unable to go in. They were unable to, nobody was responding. We sent our property management with the police to do a wellness check. They went in, nobody was there, but the place was completely destroyed, covered in feces, urine. Clearly there had been dogs living in there for a very long time with no place to get out. One of the tenants had told us that she had come through the night before and left with some trash bags. So, it's very possible that those dogs didn't survive in there and actually deceased in the building after abandonment. It's a horrible situation. This is a nightmare situation. This is about as bad as you can get. It's the worst that my property manager had seen. I'm really thankful for them for navigating this whole thing. I mean, we did our best to try to accommodate, but this is somebody who, had serious mental illness. And ultimately, I'm just glad that we were able to get possession. The other tenants, were able to get some relief from the drama there. I have compassion for these tenants, and it was definitely an experience that we learned from. So
No, no, that was a good breakdown. So I just want to take it back to the beginning a little bit when you first got the property because I know, just from hearing about other individuals and whatnot that have purchased properties that have tenants already there, like you had mentioned, you had inherited these tenants and everything, that a lot of issues can come from that because you didn't have a chance to do the vetting, you didn't have a chance to get to know who that tenant is that you're going to be managing and all that good stuff. Did you guys get any estoppel certificates or anything from them or anything from them in writing as far as to be able to compare it to those leases or anything?
we did get the leases.
Okay.
I don't believe we received any estoppels. They continue to pay rent. So after they pay the first month's rent, I mean, it was essentially a certification of the lease agreement. And we did, along the way, raise the rents yearly for a couple of years because they were so far under market. We raised them a couple times. I think at some point that became too much for her. Whatever, she had gone through with COVID, maybe lost her job. We don't know. I definitely could have compassion for the troubles that she had been through, but at the same time, um, it was the nature of what's going on in Long Beach and what's going on in California. Like rents are going up, and we were trying to improve the property. And, you know, also wanted to renovate those units. They're in bad shape. And as an owner in California, as an owner in LA County, and during COVID, especially, you really had minimal rights, minimal control. So, there is a little bit of a dichotomy of being an investor. There are bad actors out there in both sides, landlords, tenants. And, I want to be a good operator. I want to operate with compassion. At the same time, I'm an investor and I'm trying to stabilize the asset. Got to be some happy medium of providing value to the tenants and upgrading the units upgrading the property as much as you can, but also increasing the rents within your ability to get them up closer to market. It improves the area and helps improve, values altogether. And it's, improving the economy. But at the same time, you're dealing with people's lives and you don't want to lose sight of that. Some of your tenants are having trouble and you want to understand that and work with them as best you can while still trying to achieve your own goals.
Yeah, no, you make a very good point because, yeah, at the end of the day, we take pride in providing good units for people and providing units that people actually like to live in, that want to live in, and that are comparable with the amount of rent that they're paying at the end of the day. And so I totally get it, even wanting to get in there and renovate it so that you can provide a better unit just overall for whoever's living there. And I also just wanted to touch base on the time frame as well too, because I think with just as far as the eviction and providing the notice and everything, I think it would be a 30-day notice if they haven't lived there for a year yet. And if they have been there for a year or more, it'd be 60 days because I guess they're more entrenched. So in essence, they're going to need more time to get out and make a plan for that. But I also wanted to touch base on the aspect of COVID that you brought up because during COVID, yeah, it was crazy because I got my first property, mid-COVID, but you had already been in the trenches at that point. So what was your thought process like once, on the news they were saying, oh, it'll be a couple weeks, and then all of a sudden it's turning into months, and then it just seemed like there was never going to be an end to it. So once you actually noticed and came to that realization, like, hey, this is going to take a little bit longer, they started coming out with all these regulations and moratoriums. What was your mindset? Like, how did you say, all right, I need to sit down and strategize and proceed in this fashion? Like, what was your approach?
Well, the moratorium was already in place when we acquired the building. And so I knew it was going to be potentially a long road to stabilization. Oftentimes, you listen to Bigger Pockets and you get exposed to people who are doing multifamily strategies in other states where it's, higher inventory, easy, maybe lower occupancy where there's more opportunity for tenants to go find another place, or you just say, hey, here's a 1-year lease. After that, it's done. In California, in LA, that isn't the case. Once they're in there, they don't have to leave. Like you they leave on their own will unless there's an eviction in multifamily. In single family, that's another case. But we knew that these tenants were probably going to stay a long time. They have no incentive to leave. And so the only lever that we could pull is increasing the rents. And, they were significantly under market for these 2-bedroom units. They were at 1,600 initially. Market was around 1,950 at the time. Now it's closer to 2,400, which, by the way, the unit that we turned, Penny, who left, we renovated that completely, made it very nice, added in-unit laundry, and are now charging for the garage. So we're getting 2,400 total for that. So it's a big jump, but we had to increase the rents in LA County outside of the LA City. You can do outside of LA City rent control, LA RSO. You can do 5% plus whatever CPI is, up to 10% capped. Initially I think it was 8% in 2021. In 2022 it was close to 10%. 2023 it was back to like 8%. And we're not going to raise this year, I don't think, because we're over 2,000 and those units aren't updated. So I think if we pushed a little more, some of those tenants may start leaving, and at this point it may not be worth it to us to push those tenants away, because we're going to have to then spend another 25-30 grand to renovate those units. And so, you have to kind of weigh your options there if you want to spend do the capital improvements, or if you want to just maintain a little bit under market rents. So I think the strategy initially was slow and steady, fix it up as we go, raise rents a couple of times, work with the tenants. Ultimately made sense for us to instead use that money to buy another property and where we can leverage our returns.
Gotcha. No, that makes sense. And I was thinking out of curiosity, going back to the squatter really quick, how did you guys end up actually finding out about the uncle? Because I know you said that now you're renting out the garage portion of it. Was that from other tenant complaints and whatnot, or?
Other tenants were complaining.
Okay. Okay, gotcha.
And they complained about the laundry machines being vandalized. They drilled a hole in the back. They somehow popped it open and stole the coins, but they also drilled in the back so that they could start the machine without putting coins in. I mean, we've had trouble with the laundry. It's been destroyed a couple of times, and so the other tenants have been, reusing them responsibly.
I mean, that's unfortunate. I mean, that's pretty crazy just as far as drilling in the back of the damn washer. That's just, I can't even imagine. But I wanted to go back to the point where, you realize that she's not the tenant, the mom was the original tenant, and so she's essentially been, in a way, kind of like subletting it until she stopped paying rent and then transitioned into a squatter. So she stopped paying rent and everything. As far as when you guys decided, okay, it doesn't look like she's going to ever come through with any kind of payment, whether it was due to the moratorium or personal reasons, what was your approach as far as, because you had mentioned, essentially cash for keys, right? And you were trying to work with her and everything. How did you kind of determine the amount that you wanted to maybe try and present them with, or try and entice them to essentially want to leave? Because I know it's obviously all negotiable and it's kind of discretionary, but how did you approach that?
Well, my property manager guided me through that. And, working at Buckingham, we have a lot of collectively have a lot of clients, and a lot of the agents own their own properties, especially Anthony, our managing broker. And so we knew what was working in the marketplace, what was average, how to approach it that way. And my property manager, Christina Garcia from Hart Property Management, awesome property manager. She was, for us, kind of the cash for keys expert, per se. A lot of our agents and clients, we look to her to navigate some of these cash for keys situations. So she was a perfect person for this. I think we started by offering, I think it might have been 2 months rent plus moving costs. And that was maybe a mistake because that was almost insulting to the tenant. And then we went up to 10,000, and she was at that point not interested. But I have to say, I don't think even if we offered the 10 initially, she would have agreed. I think she dug her heels in and was not willing to work with us at all. We tried to give her opportunities and we tried to work with her. In general, I think the average where Cash for Keys was successful was around 10 to 15,000. Pretty hefty, pretty sizable. And then after that, you're looking at another 25 to 30 to renovate the unit once you get them out. One strategy that a lot of us go after with the multifamily is doing the tenant shuffle. And if you can get one unit open, then maybe you can move the tenant from one of the other units into that new unit, renovate their unit, and kind of move three people around so you can ultimately renovate them all and bring the tenants into a higher rent, maybe give them a slight discount because they're existing tenant. If you can get one out, then maybe you can move them all around, and if they're willing, but you don't have control. You're at the mercy of the tenant to agree to these things, and they don't have to.
No, that's a good point. I guess at the end of the day, with all those costs that kind of stack up, I guess it's a good tax write-off, right? So it's a business expense, so it's something. But I guess if you had to take a look back at that, and as far as like what you're doing now, and just even into the future, even though you went through that experience with that tenant, and not to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like that was probably the worst experience with a tenant so far, having to deal with that. If you had to do it all over again, would you, even though you went through all that, but just the fact that, you love real estate and that's something that you want to do anyways and you plan on doing for the long term. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I absolutely would do it again. I'm so happy that we bought that building. It was a great purchase. It was at a great time. And so now, looking in the marketplace in LA County and Southern California, any of the higher, more expensive markets, to try to buy something that's going to break even if it's stabilized, maybe even more when it's stabilized because it's going to fetch a higher price. But just finding anything that's going to break even at 25% down, it's hard. It's really, really hard to find something like that. And so we were close to breaking even. So it was really perfect because, again, and one thing you hear a lot of people say in real estate and bigger pockets, whatever, is I wish I started sooner. I wish I bought more. I'm just glad that we bought that one. But look, to the people who are getting started and trying to, there's plenty of opportunities in every market, in every part of the cycle. And there will always be opportunities, and it's never, you can't just look back and think, oh, I wish I had bought then, I wish I bought then. Just best time to buy is now. Like best time to buy is when you can. Maybe the interest rates are high right now, maybe the prices are high, but there's opportunities and interest rates will come back down, and there's still strategies you can employ to make money now, and it's a long-term game. So it's not about buy low, sell high. It's about buy something, use that to build your income, work on that, and then maybe you re-leverage, maybe you exchange that 2-3 years down the road, and you build and you build and you build. There's plenty of other strategies. You could be a wholesaler, you can be a fix and flip, operator. You can do rentals, you can do short terms. It's just a great way to diversify. And if you're hands-on, if you're more passive, like you can find anything. But I think that was a great learning experience, and it's hard in LA and San Francisco and San Diego. Like it's tough because the tenant rights are so strong. It's such an expensive market. The housing shortage is so high. It's very limited. So competition. There's so much competition, but there's still opportunities, and it's worth the time. It's to me worth the time and effort to get into the game and to grow and nurture that. And that's another reason why I've diversified into Kansas City, as you have too. Another market that has different pros and cons that can be complementary to the strategies we have here. That's maybe a little bit of more of a cash flow market, rather maybe not going to appreciate as well as the stuff we have here in California, which will always be very valuable, always going to appreciate well. You don't have as many landlord rights as a landlord here. You do out there, and there's opportunities, low-hanging fruit out there, growth, cash flow, barrier to entry is lower. It's great to have diversification, and even within real estate.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And damn, I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, what's that saying where when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago and then today. Everybody that I've heard that says, oh, now's not a good time, they usually don't have a good reason for why. It's like they maybe heard something in the news or they're talking about interest rates, but people make it work at any interest rate. They make it work at any price range. It depends on what strategy you're going in on. Now's the best time, absolutely. Who cares what the interest rates are right now? If the numbers work and you can make it work, then proceed. But yeah, I love how you just broke that down. So what are you working on now? Why don't you give us a breakdown of that and let the audience know about in terms of what you plan on doing in the future?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I've been more focused on the Kansas City stuff lately. We've got a fourplex out there as well. We did a fix and flip out there earlier this year. My girlfriend and I moved out there. Her family lives out there, and we have a little bunch of friends out there. And so she actually introduced me to Kansas City a couple of years ago, and I had already been thinking about an out-of-state market, learned about it, really fit the bill, visited. You can buy a house for 150, less than 100,000, put like very little down. The outlay of cash is so much smaller, and the abundance of opportunities, and it's growing like crazy. So it's a place where we could go and get more volume, get more deals under our belt. I like what's going on there. The fourplex we have bought in end of 2022, renovated a bunch of the units. My girlfriend and I manage that long distance. Now we've actually got a bunch of our tenants who've been there for a year moving out. One unit I'm renting long term again, but 2 units after they open up, I'm actually going to furnish and go and do midterm rentals there. So I'm going to get back into the midterm rental game. This time, full unit rentals, and this is relatively close to a medical center, so there is a decent amount of demand for travel nurse housing. I think it'll do well. It'll be cool to kind of get back into the Airbnb furnished finder game, depending on how that goes. We may double down on that as well. So that's what I've been working on. We did the fix and flip. I know you did your burr out there. I kind of want to get in, follow your footsteps a little into the burr strategy, which I haven't done yet, because I want to grow the portfolio. Fix and flip is cool, and I think we'll do some more down the road. But got to say, it was a little hard to sell something, because I've been so in the mindset of like build. There's a lot of people who want to just grow their doors, and I'm not necessarily like that, but I certainly want to add units and take those units and help those buy more units. And so that's the long-term rental. I like the management. I like operating. I like doing the value add the projects. And I like, at the fruits of the labor, like you finish the project and then you have this cool building that you operate. So that's what I'm focused on. So we'll see where we go with it. But, I'm excited for it. We'll see.
Yeah, man, I'm excited for you too. And I mean, we'll hopefully get some deals together going pretty soon in the near future as well. Yeah, that's exciting. And I mean, like I said, you're already crushing it. So I'm just anxious to see, what the next step is, both for you and your girlfriend, and just kind of getting out there and building that long-term legacy, that wealth generation and all that good stuff. So, but I wanted to thank you again for your time and for joining us here today for today's episode. We really appreciate you giving us your stories and just letting us know, the ins and outs and shedding light on this subject for our viewers here, particularly for those who haven't started investing yet and we're a little freaked out by some of those, recent news stories. So much appreciated, man. Thank you. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah. Appreciate you, D. Thanks.
Yeah. So you can find Pete on Instagram. It's at PETEDAUT. EUIL. I know that's a lot. I'll leave a link to that below in the description so you guys can go ahead and give them a follow. You can also find Buckingham on Instagram as well at Buckingham Investments. So if you're looking to get your first or next investment property, or any property for that matter, definitely hit him up. Hit up Pete here as well, and he'll be able to help you out for sure with anything you need. Thank you everyone today for watching. Keep going the distance. Let's get it cracking, make it happen, and we'll catch you next time.